Okay, and I think we got it. And hello, everyone who's out there, if you are out there, because I'm still learning. My name is Simon Deacon, and I have been doing these interviews for about 2 months now, and I've been having a lot of fun just talking to interesting people. And I have with me today a very powerful healer, energy healer, medium, Miss Ambujam Rose. And I'm so happy
Hello.
that she is here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, welcome. And
Thank you.
the
Thank you.
Ambujam is an awakening self-embodiment activator, wayshower, guide, and healer. She has Ambujam's one-of-a-kind group power healing sessions accelerate your personal path of growth, healing, awakening, and self-empowerment, and embodying of the true self. And all of that is in such wonderful alignment with me because that is what I do in Vortex Healing. Ambujam is a very dear friend of mine. We first met in the Vortex Healing classes. And the Vortex Healing classes and the Vortex Healing transmissions have a very interesting transformational effect on people because they're very powerful. They can go for like a week or 2 weeks, and they infuse a lot of divinity and the transmissions to channel the divine healing magic from your system. And it's also a very awakening lineage. And for some people do it because they want to add to their they wish to add to their energy healing modalities. Some do it for personally for the awakening aspect. But I've also noticed that sometimes these transmissions are a catalyst for other people where it helps them get to a certain point, and then the divine helps to bring a catalyst into a whole new different direction. And Ambujam is definitely a wonderful example of that because she has, from what I have read and what she has shared with me, she has such a beautifully unique modality that is so powerful in seeing in the deepest places of your soul, reading in those deepest places of your soul, and just bringing forth these natural divine essences and the natural divinity from your higher self and your guides and all your troops of divine beings
All
and
the troops.
spirit guides to help you. So please, Amazon, please share your story about where your healing path has brought you.
um, First of all, I just want to thank you for having me here
My pleasure.
and spending time together, and with all of you guys who are watching live or later. So I'm going to take my 27 years of healing practice and nutshell it in like 3 minutes or less. So ever since I was like 5 years old, I would see the world of spirit and our human world and all these multi dimensions around us all. And to me, it looked like this massive mall where Earth, will say, was the ground floor with all these escalators and elevators. And there's just like all these countless floors, and how all these floors are these other dimensions, these other realms of where I exist and everyone exists. And we're living like this multifaceted life all at once. And all the decisions I make in this earth world affect all these parts of me in the mall, and all the parts of me in the mall affect me here. And I just thought this was normal. I thought everybody saw this. And my team that I call Spirit, ever since I was little, I'd be sitting in my room by myself playing, and they would come in and show me the mall and help me understand the mall. And they would talk to me about what happens when we have an emotion that we don't feel, or we deny it, or we avoid it, or we get scared of it and it gets stuck, and how our emotion that we feel in this life is also connected to all these other parts of us, and we're not separate. And so I was shown that, we're it's like we're all interdependent. I can't just do something here without affecting me everywhere. And so the emotions that I see in this life, like our hardest ones, our deepest issues, our deepest relationship situations, our deepest work situations, the things that are so intense and take so long, they don't start in this floor of the mall. They start in all these other floors. And I've never seen anything just start in this life, ever, 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 ever. And so I was being like schooled and taught of how to connect to these parts of me, to understand myself here and what I need to do to heal my deepest stuff here. And again, I just thought everybody saw that, like no big deal. And then but when I left my room when I was a kid, it didn't go with me though. Like it only was when I was alone in my room, until one day everything changed and I was in my room playing with spirit, as I would call it, and we were having a family party, and I hear my mom call me, it's time to come out now. And I always get super sad when I have to leave them all, you know. So I'm like, okay, I'll be back. And I walked out into the living room, and my next memory is all these adults are in this party, and I was like knee high because I was like 5. So I'm knee high with everybody, and all of a sudden, above like my uncle's head, I see this like boundless, like I called it a cloud because I have to give it a shape to talk about. So it's like I saw this cloud that was multidimensional and boundless above my uncle's head. And in the cloud had all of these significant lifetimes of certain experiences and certain feelings and certain reactions and certain stories and certain belief systems. It was so complicated. And how all of this in the cloud was the root cause of his present life path, his present life stuff. And all these past lives started talking to me like, this is what the present us needs to do to heal. And I was like, okay. And then I started seeing clouds above the adult's head, and it wasn't over everyone's. And I started feeling this beckoning from the clouds, like I felt like it wanted to tell me stuff. And if I could just tell the adult, all they had to do was listen. They didn't have to like figure it out. The energy would somehow be like offered, and their awareness would go, oh, got it. And I feel all this, I see all this, but I'm like 5. I don't know how to say it, you know? And I was at a relative of mine at his knee, okay? And all of a sudden, this part of him came out of his knee and he started saying, we don't like her. And he was talking about his mother. And I'm like, okay. And this little boy of the knee was starting to tell me, these are all the reasons we don't like our mother.
And you were
And
seeing
she
it
made it.
visually?
I was seeing it visually. Yep.
Okay.
And hearing it audio, just like I'm seeing you right now.
Wow.
Plain as day. And it's like a whole other world opened up. And the little boy started saying, no matter what we did when we were little, like we used to draw pictures, or we used to, get A's in school, or we used to do really well, and we would come home and show her everything that we did. And she just was so angry and just looked at our stuff and was like, nah, like you can do better. And she had no time for us. And he started going into all these details. So then he said how much his mother made him feel not enough. And I see this image of like, it was like an alive tunnel. And all these pictures were on either side of the tunnel, like movies of all these times that he would show his mother his accomplishments, and his mother would just be like, nah. And so the little boy shows me this whole tunnel and all these experiences. And when he got to the end, he said, and the reason why she was so angry is because she never grieved her husband's death, like my dad's death, this little boy's dad's death. And she took all that grief turned into anger, and she took it out on me. And I was like, oh. But then this was the interesting part. I mean, not like none of that was interesting, But then he said, So now do you want to see where the not good enough came from in the first place? And I was like, yeah. And the whole scene changed, and we like leaped off this tunnel into, I called it the karmic world of where the karmic history was of not feeling good enough. And he brought me all the way to the root of it, to the beginning of it. And the root of it, and the little boy was teaching me how he could heal this not good enough stuff, at the root of it. So that was my first experience. And then the next thing I kind of remember is I was in high school and I'm telling people what I see in their clouds, and they wanted to just shut me down. They're like, you're killing the party, you're a buzzkill, you're a weirdo. And it was so painful. And yet I felt like what I had to offer was so needed, and like had this sweetness to it and this vulnerability, and nobody wanted it. So I shut it off. And I totally forgot about my gifts until I moved to San Francisco when I was 26 years old. And they literally turned on overnight. And I was walking to waitressing and I turned a corner and all of a sudden they opened again. And I still didn't remember that I had shut it down. And the story is much longer than that. But what created me to create a practice was when my gifts turned on and I was waitressing, and I would practice with people and waitressing. And I came home and my roommate was home, and I said, can I do a reading for you? And I didn't know how, because it was happening all on its own. So I guess this story is longer than 3 minutes. So anyway, so he's like, sure. So I'm like, how do I get in there? Like on purpose, And I remember seeing a movie of like, missing people, and psychics would take scarves or whatever. So I asked my roommate for a ring of his, and he gave me his ring because I knew it was super important to him. And I was feeling the ring, and all of a sudden this image came up of his struggles at work with everyone, and how he felt, again, it's funny, the same theme of not enough. And I was seeing his experience with his boss and experience with all his colleagues, and deep down there was this feeling of like his words would be talking to his colleagues, but deep down he's like, he didn't feel enough. And all of a sudden these beings came in, which was my first experience of these higher beings. I don't know what else to call them. And to me, so anyway, these higher beings came in and they said, tell him his dad needs him. And I was like, and for whatever reason, hearing the voices of these beings freaked me the F out. The readings didn't freak me out. For whatever reason, nothing freaked me out. It felt so calming and so normal, except I don't know why. And so they were pestering me because I'm like, no, 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 that's weird. No, 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 I'm hearing voices. No, no, no. And they were so adamant, and they just kept saying, tell him his dad needs him, tell him his dad needs him. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. So I turned to my roommate and I said, your dad needs you. And his whole face changed. And he was just so upset and frightened. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, I screwed him up. Like, I was scared. And he said, why would you say that? And he got really angry at me. And I'm like, I don't know. These beings are telling me to tell you about your dad. And he said, I haven't seen my dad in like 15 years. He left my mom and I haven't talked to him since. And then all of a sudden the whole reading changed, and I started to get information about his dad's soul, about why he left the family. And he thought he was doing the family a favor because he realized he wasn't ready to be a dad and he didn't want to screw his kid up. So I'm seeing all of this information, and how my roommate thought it was all his fault his dad left. And that's where his not good enough stuff came from in this life. And so he felt so inadequate. So when he's around all these men at work, like all that inadequacy was, getting triggered. So I tell my roommate how we can heal the not good enough stuff. And we talked about his father's soul and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I wake up the next day and I'm thinking, that was a fluke. Like, how do I know stuff? And I'm like, but I want to do it again. And I went to work waitressing and I'm reading people, and I get home and my roommate was laying on the couch, tissues everywhere. And he was bawling his eyes out. And something in me was like, ruh-roh, like, I did something wrong. I said something wrong. Like he's upset because of what I said. And he gets off the couch and he's coming towards me in a way I have never seen anyone's eyes, like full of tears, but also gratitude. And I'm like, what is happening? And he said, do you remember you told me to call my dad, or my dad needs me? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I called my mom and we found his phone number and I called him today. I was like, you did? And he said, yes. And when I called him, he was so happy to hear from me. And he told me the reason why he left the family is because he didn't realize he was ready to be a dad. And he thought if he left the family, he would save me. And I'm thinking, that's what the being said, or that's what the information said. And he said, we're going to have lunch tomorrow and start a whole new relationship. And I was like, and then the beings came back and they were like, this is what you are to do. You can see the root cause of people's issues and how to heal it super fast. And I was like, okay. And then that started my practice, and that was 27 years ago.
That is
So,
such a beautiful story.
so let me just finish this part, and then, so I'm doing these readings for, I don't know, 7 years or so. During the readings, the energy work started, where I'm doing a reading with somebody and I'm seeing all this information, and all of a sudden, something in their heart activated all this light and information activated, and it started going to all these issues that I was talking about, and the person's energy knew what to do. And I'm like, what's happening? And then it kept getting stronger and stronger with every client I would see. And then there was a mixture of my clients, like something in them activated to heal themselves, but also this very high accelerated healing energy and light would partner with their truth, and this like massive explosion of healing would happen. And I had to figure out, like, what the hell am I doing? What's going on? And then my clients started waking up, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't know the term awakening yet. I just saw this truth in my clients starting to come alive. And then people started going through basically what everybody's going through now, is this like 24 hours a day, your stuff is up. And it's like this quickening, right? Like everything's healing, purifying, purging. And my client's like, why is this happening to me? And I was like, oh, because your light's coming out and it's healing all this stuff. Everything's purifying to be this now. And so my whole practice had to change from, we could say, just doing readings. I don't want to say just, but doing readings, because that's still significant. But at the same point, I knew my client wasn't the issue, and yet the issue was still there. And it turned into, how do you help somebody realize themselves and heal their issue from there, right? And then, because so many people started waking up, Spirit's like, basically, we get to help more people at once instead of one-on-one stuff. And so my group power healings were born, which is basically, it's like a private session, but with a bunch of people. And we do this accelerated healing to clear and heal and accelerate evolution in their system, because we're in this group power energy, and to help them embody the truth of who they are, like faster, easier. So we just take what would have already happened, but do it now. So that's how the group power healing happened, is like, because everybody was awakening, we needed a quicker way to help people release their stuff, because it takes, we all know, like, it's intense, it's a lot. So that's my story.
Okay, and in the group healings, do you see that detailed vision
Yeah.
of higher plan? Oh, please, if you can, if you would like to share an example of that, I'd love to, because I know those groups are now your specialty. I'd love to hear more
Yeah.
about that.
So how the process works is, every week I tune in to ask Spirit, is there a group this week? Yes or no? That's my first question. And the answer is yes. Mostly I've been doing it every single Friday since 2020 started. It's kind of my memory. It might have been happening before then, but the frequency of them started to change. And then I'm like, what's the topic? And then Spirit will give me the overview of the topic of what we're going to work on. And it mostly meets the current energy shifts that we're going through. So as an example, Easter a couple of Sundays ago was a major heart activation, to simplify it. And so the Friday before Easter, because Spirit is all about accelerating their healing process. So we're taking what's already happening, but we're accelerating the release, accelerating the awakening. So that Friday before Easter, we worked with the energy on Easter before it happened. And so we were accelerating the energy that was already going to happen on Sunday to start that clearing now, to start working with these correlating past lives of these significant issues that are affecting what's around that activation. So whenever we activate, there's stuff around it, right? That gets triggered, right? So we started working with what is going to get triggered now. So once Sunday comes, they would have already had this huge head start. And then they'll start activating when the activations actually happen. So that's an example of the topics we get. It always works with the energy that we're dealing with and then the details of it. So Spirit gives me the overview. And then when everybody comes, it's in that moment that there's like, it's like I'm doing a private session, but it's for everyone. So in that moment, when the call starts, we do it on Zoom, when the call starts, the information starts revealing itself of where everybody is exactly on their path of awakening, on their path of purifying and inner growth, and the themes that everybody's working on, and then the details of those themes. So one example is in one group we went into the like core of betrayal. Like that's just what came up. So I never know what's going to come up because everybody brings it within them. So we went all the way back to the soul, and I don't choose. We're going to go back to the soul now. The soul chose, okay, I'm going to deal with these soul agreements now, why I created betrayal in the first place. So we're able to go so far back and work on so many dimensions at once, but I never get to choose what we're doing and when we do it. It happens out of that sacred collaboration of, again, that person's true self and the energy that I'm able to, that accelerating energy. It's like they're in concert with each other and they're collaborating, and it's literally in the moment. And it's so fascinating because I get emails after with people saying, are you sure there was anybody else on the call? Like, I feel like you were talking directly to me. And I'm always in awe of how that can be. How do you have a massive group of people with the same exact experience of
I have had
betrayal,
that, yes, I have had that
right?
experience in group healings too, where the majority of people have the same issue, that they're coming in with the same issue.
And
And
it
that's
makes
not a
sense,
coincidence.
right?
Mhm.
Exactly. Like, why are you drawn to this topic versus another topic, you know? And it's, to me, it's like a symphony. Like, everyone has their own instrument, but when we come together, we play this music that cannot be played alone. Or it's the image of like a building on fire, and you either have one fire hose trying to get that water, trying to get the fire out, or you have 500 water hoses. It's like, well, which one's quicker? You
You're the
know?
five, you're the 500.
Exactly. So, yeah. And as the awakening is accelerating in the earth itself and within us, it just keeps opening the sessions to what we can have access to. And it's different every single time. Like, a session can never be repeated because it always meets the paths of who comes in the moment and those specific details. So if we did a session, let's say now, and we did one an hour from now, it would be completely different topics and different layers of healing.
I'm curious. Because of the huge shifts that have been going on the planet for these past few years, not just the past 2 years, but did you see? I'm curious. Have you seen a reoccurring theme through the pandemic with these group healings?
Um, well, it's interesting. I mean, I think there's so many themes um, that people are going through individually. And one thing I was seeing was each soul was, we could say, using the pandemic experience to heal extremely quickly and deal with themselves. You know, like the human has to deal with themselves. And so it was a forced dealing. Like you have to deal now because you're home alone or you're with your kids or you know any it's like the immense amount of energy that had to be faced was just overwhelming because it was so much. It's like all the stuff that piled up over years for people had to be dealt with, you
I have
know.
experienced this acceleration of dealing. I myself have gone through it as well. It's just things coming at you one after the other.
One after the other.
And other people
Yeah.
have been saying this too.
Yeah. You know, can I say something? I feel like I have to say something.
Please.
Um, so I just have to talk about awakening for a second in the way that spirit wants me to talk about it.
Your intuition is telling you to is calling on you to
Yeah.
articulate. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please, please.
Um,
Ooh, I can feel it.
awakening is the most natural thing that can happen to you. You meaning us. And how they're showing me it is there's this image of the light within, the truth within, the awareness within, the consciousness within, who we really are, what we really are. There's no labels for it, not really. We can point to it. But how do you even speak to the truth of who you really are, right? And this light, this truth of who we are, is like an alive formation of energy, and it keeps surfacing and coming out and coming out and coming out and coming out, coming out, coming out, coming out. And I feel like it is not to be feared. Like I need to talk about don't fear it. It is the most natural thing in the world. So underneath all our issues and all our mind and all the beautiful language we could use, the simplicity of it is you're the the truth of who and what you really are is coming alive. It's not going to go away. It's not going to stop. It's not going to get less. It's only going to get more. And I feel like the message is how do you embrace it instead of running? How do you know, like, this is so dang freaking normal? It's not some pie in the sky. It's not for the chosen. It's not for people on the path. It's for everyone because it's the truth of you. You don't need to be special. You don't need to be deserving. You don't need to be perfect.
I'm
It's already who you are. Yeah.
What would be the best way to articulate or to reassure someone or to help them embody that it is truly as simple and as normal and as a right of everyone? I mean, how do you bring them into that embodiment of intuitive reassurance?
If you all can just take a moment in your day or 5 minutes, because it's different every time, alone with yourself. And you don't try to stop the mind and you don't try to stop the emotions, but you come in with a sincere choice to touch yourself, to know, to feel. You will then know the truth that's awakening in you is the safest thing in the entire world. It's the most sacred, deepest, plainest, simplest thing. But the only way you can really know that is through your own direct experience. And if you don't touch it, you'll never know it. And the thing is it's everywhere. It's not like, and this is why I feel like Spirit wanted to talk about this. It's not this special thing. It's everywhere throughout your day. but we don't pay attention to it, or we get busy. You know, we have kids, or we have a job, or we're human, right? But if you can carve out a time, just like you would to exercise or cook or shower or go poo, like be normal, right? Awakening's normal as much as is, you know, you go to the bathroom, it's awakening. Like really, it's normal
Chopping
to
wood.
take, chop wood, yeah. Take time to feel it for yourself, to tune in and imagine all of the issues and the emotions in the mind is the wind blowing around, and within that wind, within that space is you, not the mental you, but it's, you can feel it, you can feel it, you can sense it, you can feel it. And then there's moments where you get scared, you touch it and you contract, super normal, but you have to touch it with, you know, with your presence, with your choice, with your focus, with your intention, and let it come to you. You don't have to try. So when you go to sit with yourself, just be in this deepest heart's choice to feel the truth in you that's coming out. And then let it come to you. Let it show you. And you will have an experience. Your mind might judge it like it thinks it should be something else, but you'll know because you know it. Once the truth is felt, it's known. Like the truth bell rings, can't unring it. So that's what I want to say.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Uh, I recall, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, I did this video saying that I know that there's going to be a lot of people, especially spiritual teachers and mediums, who are going to give their own theories about why this pandemic is happening and why all this terrible darkness and suffering is happening. And I said, I don't want to do that, because I don't think that's people are going to be in the thick of it. They're going to be in the thick of this suffering. They're going to be in the thick of this darkness. And I don't think pontificating about my theories is going to help in the slightest. The only thing I wish to do at this time is hold space for their suffering and serve, because that is what I think that is what brings me comfort at this time. And it's and it's a very interesting thing to, if you can, for those who are open to it, to facilitate helping people understand when they're going through something really dark. Because I don't, because I hold space for it. I don't want them to get defensive. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. But like, to if they can, we can help them see what's going on, from why this darkness is happening. And I'm just like, I'm curious. It's just like, what has been your experience dealing with that type of really challenging darkness?
You mean with people, helping them understand it?
Yes, or yeah, or on an individual basis, like in a session or something. If you care, if you want to share a personal
To,
story.
yeah, to me, when the truth, so when somebody's going through something super intense, we'll say the dark night of the soul, right? And it's just, it's when that perspective of truth is offered about that dark experience, they feel it, and then they're able to have a different perspective,
Mhm.
right? Because like you said, you can't be pontificated, you can't just talk about it, you have to be. I feel like once the truth is spoken about it, then they feel it, and then things can, doesn't necessarily make it go away, right? And the other thing, like when you're talking about like this dark stuff people are going through, I can't even express enough in words the thousands of times that I have seen that every single thing that somebody is going through is the path. And it's all portals home to themselves. Like every single little nook and cranny nugget is the thing. When you face it like earnestly, and it takes a minute, right? Because we face it with our minds first. We're like, okay, I'm facing it, right? But then at some point, if we really just stay with it something drops, something opens. Like we know it. Like we know when we've like shifted, right? From like staring at the thing to like, oh, okay, I feel something's different. Every single thing is the portal home to ourselves, like every single thing. And I've never, like, whether something is of physical nature, somebody's sick, whether it's of money nature, whether it's of a relationship nature, or work, or even a car, or a house, or a pet, it's all behind the scenes. Is it's all energy, and it's all something going on behind the curtain, so to speak, of that soul, that path.
Mhm.
And if we can ask, what is the spiritual opportunity trying to show me from this experience? Holy shit, so much opens. Sorry, can I swear?
Sure.
Okay, good. So much changes when I can ask, what is this trying to show me? Like once I can get out of my way, because at first you get upset, of course. But if we can use our lives as teachers and as mirrors and as portals to understand, wait, this is bigger than just this person yelling at me, or this is bigger than my card is broke down, or it's bigger than I want more money than I have right now. What is actually going on? That's when things really change. And we just have to ask and then stay curious and stay open. And it's hard. Like when you're in the fire, you can't say this fire is not hot. You can't like meditate out of it. Right. And so I think it's like, simply put, I think it's both. It's really owning how we feel, and not spiritualizing it, not bypassing it, like owning it. And at the same point, using our ability to ask, and what is this opportunity? And this dark stuff that we go through is stuff like when we are going through our awakening now, we're not just dealing with our childhood stuff. We are dealing with the root causes with every single life we have ever had, going all the way back to lifetime number one, which is not just in this universe. Like it's beyond. When we're awakening now, everything is purifying and transforming to meet the awakening. And so we're not just dealing with stuff with our parents, we're dealing with since all time, all time, all time. And to know that, and to be a little bit kinder to ourselves, which is so hard. And like for me, like when I'm in my deepest stuff, I'm identified in it. So it's super hard.
Mhm.
I can't, like, as much as I try to, like, I can't do it. I pray and I wait and I know I'm in it, but it doesn't make it easier,
Mhm.
So I think for each of us, there are moments where we can have a second of space or a glimpse, and then we're right back in it again. And that is all normal. Like it's all normal. I just posted something on Facebook the other day that said, and I can't remember what I wrote exactly, but it was basically like, we can all get lost sometimes, and then we'll find our way back only to get lost again. And this is the path.
Yeah, but
And I think
sometimes that one glimmer can still plant a seed.
exactly,
Mm.
even though our stuff feels like it didn't change at all from the glimmer, but once we have that glimmer, something in us knows now, even though the trigger is still super intense, we know. Yeah.
Okay, that is so beautiful because everything is connected, and every time I have a session with someone and I go deeper into their issue, I just see all these interesting connections, and I even see my connection with them, which is very beautiful. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, it's wild.
this natural connection to this cloud where you are accessing the dimensions of their selves, that maybe they're accessing the dimension of their higher selves to show all this information. Uh, for me, I can do it. I have this little technique where I'm looking into someone's eyes, and I just sort of like I look into their eyes and I just kind of follow it down, and I'm just kind of sensing, and eventually I see it. But it's a very it, it it's a it's a very vulnerable and sacred place for someone to
Mhm.
allow you to
To
go
allow.
to yeah,
Yes.
to allow you to go inside like that. And I'm curious as to, like, when you were seeing this with other people, when you were seeing this with other people, would you do you get the sense that, like maybe their souls were already giving you permission?
Well, no. When I first started and I was seeing all this in San Francisco, I told everybody what I saw. I didn't know about boundaries yet. I was just like this innocent, playful kid. Like, can I tell you this? Can I tell you this? Can I tell? And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to know? Like, why wouldn't you want to know the root cause of your thing? I don't get it.
You'd
And
be
it took me a
surprised.
while. Yeah, I'd be surprised. It took me a while to understand, oh, boundaries. And I don't feel like I was violating exactly, like, I need their permission. I didn't care. And I just, rolled over it. It was more like I was just unsolicited telling them. Like they didn't ask me, but I was just telling them.
There
And
was
I
a
had to
timeliness,
learn,
yes.
huh?
There was a timeliness to it.
Yeah. And I had to learn to ask first, like, hey, can I tell you this? Versus just telling. And it took me the first couple of years I was doing it, it took me a while to learn how to shut it off and
Mm.
not look at all. Because I was afraid, because it came on so quickly, I was afraid if I stopped looking, it would go away. And I had to deal with that fear of like, I was I was on 24/7. I was always looking. And I was afraid if I stopped, then my gifts would go away. And I learned that wasn't true, and now I'm like, it's 27 years later. So now I'm very clear, like, this is my work and this is my life. And I don't like go to the supermarket and look at somebody. I just don't do that. Like there's nothing in me that wants to do that. It's just inappropriate in my opinion. So in a work setting, yes, you have to ask, right?
Mm. No, but I'm definitely getting a sense that what you discovered at such a young age was probably definitely something that you brought in from a past life. That
Mm.
that is definitely soul memory. Do you think that this incredibly prolific vision that you have? Do you think that with do you think that that it can be accessible to everyone, or have you learned it?
I It's been my experience after doing private sessions for so long that every single person has their own unique way of getting information and what they tune into and how they tune into it. So for some people they see, some people they feel only, some people they hear only, some people it's all of it. I think we all have our own natural way of getting information, and to trust that and
Mhm.
to cultivate like what's really true for me. How do I receive information? Is it through my body? I mean, so many questions to ask ourselves like that. So I feel like everybody can do it. It's just they have to do it in their own way.
Mhm.
Because like when I thought I needed, so long story short, so I went to hypnotherapy school a long time ago. And during the class, this teacher came in and he's like, we're going to do an exercise today. And I'm going to sit in the center of the room and I'm going to ask you questions about me. And I want you to basically tell me the answers. And so we're all sitting there. And I just knew my gifts didn't work like that. And I chose to sit this one out. I was just quiet. And that was a very empowering experience for me, because years before I would have tried to make myself do what he was asking. And then I would have felt, I would have felt really upset. It didn't work. Can't trust myself. See, right? So I learned how I work, how I don't work. Like somebody will ask me about a dream. I'm like, no clue. Dreams aren't my thing. Or somebody would ask me about, do you get a name of something that you're seeing? And I'm like, nope, don't get names. So I know enough what's for me and what's not for me, or how I work and how I don't work. And so I feel like everyone has their own unique way. It's just find out what that is and then expand upon that, learn from it, cultivate, practice. Like
Beautiful.
you were saying, you when you look in somebody's eyes, like you have this like an experience happens and then you follow that through,
Mhm.
right? Like what would have happened if you never followed that and you thought you were supposed to do something else? You'd be like, you're missing it, right? You know, and I hear spirit saying like, it's such a vulnerable thing to follow your gifts down, like, because they can come so subtly and we're waiting for a big bang, right? And it's not necessarily that. And so, you know, I can kind of feel like with you, Simon, like spirits, like the vulnerability it took for and the risk it took for you to follow that experience and trust it, right? It's vulnerable.
Yes.
Can I share a little quick story? How much time
Please.
do we have, by the way?
Oh, oh yes. Please share. Please share a story, and we'll find a lovely way to wrap up.
Okay. So when I was doing my private work, a client came to me and most people knew how I worked. So they're like, just do your thing, see what comes up. I'm like, okay. So I see this image immediately of her standing in her backyard saying, hello, angels. And they would be like, hey, what's up? She'd be like, shh, trying to hear my angels, trying to hear spirit. So she'd be like, hello. And she'd hear, hey, what's up? And so I'm watching this, and that's her team talking to her, but she's waiting for some other voice and how it's supposed to be. So I tell her, hey, are you having this experience? And she's like, yeah, in the mornings I go out and I wait for spirit to talk to me. I'm like, you know that voice that keeps saying, what's up? I'm like, that's them. But your idea of it, harps should be playing or whatever. You know, it was just like, and it just spoke to like how we work as humans. We have an idea what something is, and we're just focused on that. And it could be, meanwhile, what is it really? Right. So that's my quick story.
Oh, that's beautiful. The subverting of expectations, and that is what I know that Marilyn in Vortex Healing. Uh, I've had that lesson many before. I had a little joke that that I'm going into healing an issue, and I have this expectation of how it's going to happen. And Merlin is going, "Oh, you, Simon, you have expectations. How adorable is that?" No, no, no.
It's so adorable.
Yeah,
I love that though, right? When you get that, isn't that relief when you hear that? Like, oh, goody.
no, it's
Or,
okay.
or,
It's
or
true
do
what
you
they
feel like angry or whatever?
Uh, I know that it's when I ask him a question or I present him with an idea, he doesn't always give me the answer. He's more like, I hear him go, he's always doing, he's going, hmm. And that's a very pregnant, hmm. Meaning that means that there is so much more, that it's meaning that so much more that's going on than I can see. Uh, Yeah, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all it is. That is what awakening is. This dismantling process of all expectations and limiting
Yep.
beliefs and all these ego
Subs-
structures.
yeah, everything subtracts instead of gets added, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and I do think when we were talking last night, I remember feeling just a wonderful feeling, feeling so, feeling the synchronicity of how I'm going through my own stressful stuff and how we were talking and how we were intuitively going back and forth. I could definitely feel like a catalyst of spirit supporting us both and just bringing
Mm.
us back into this reassurance that we are definitely on the right path. There is
Yeah, it was so lovely. We had like a 3-hour conversation last night, you guys. So I think it was
yeah.
like 3 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, and
And
that's
plus, we
okay.
haven't seen each other in like how many years now?
Oh,
I
years
don't
upon
even know.
years upon years.
Yeah, it was so good to connect
Yes.
and connect.
Oh, God, it went right out of my head. Oh yeah, but like you said, the divine is definitely in the details because how I
Mm.
found vortex healing. I went across the street to get a sandwich from where I was working, and there was the vortex healing flyer on their bulletin board.
You're like, well,
And I take it down. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And then talking with you, I'm like I think I'm sitting like a cafe, and I'm just like, who should I interview? I'm like, oh, Ambujam, yeah, sure, why not? And it just like no, it just like yeah, it's just the divine is just that little tapping on the shoulder.
yeah, and following it is our job, right?
Hmm. Okay, would you like to share more of your information, your website? What do you got going in the work?
So I do my group power healings mostly every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and they're about an hour and a half. The timing changes all the time. So I am doing one this Friday. You can go to my website, ambujamhealing.com, and then you'll see join next group page. So you can go there and all the information is there. You can sign up for my email list there. I'm on Instagram under Ambujam Rose, Ambujam Rose, and then Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff.
Beautiful.
So that's me.
And please, what does Ambujam mean again?
It means the mother lotus flower, that which is born out of the oceans, and goddess Lakshmi.
Beautiful. That is yes,
You
there it
have
is.
big shoes to fill.
Jingle, jingle. I, I think you got the right fit. All right. Thank you so much, Ambujam,
Thank you,
for coming.
love.
I hope we do this again.
Yeah, it'll be really fun.
Yes. All right. And all right, just want to let you know. Okay, for me, uh, uh, I have two. I have two group healings coming up in vortex healing. There is the hypno vortex, which is a wonderful child vortex healing and guided meditation with my colleague Joe Elfman. That is on the first Wednesday of every month. And then there is another group healing coming up on May 26th of healing the divine. It's called Healing Divine Connection, and it's very get those ideas is very similar to what Amajan is going through, because I have all these great ideas and I'm like, oh, can I do this? And Marilyn goes, nope. Oh, can I do this? And Marilyn goes, nope. And I just have to wait. He likes to keep me waiting. He probably knows that I'm very restless and very patient. So I'm just like, let's keep Simon waiting a little bit until he finally gets it. And then and then it finally hits me. And I take it from there. And you can also check my very powerful vortex healing services on my webpage, simondeacon.com. And thank you, Amajan, so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for
You have
being
such a
here.
beautiful light. Would you like to show your lovely piece of artwork before we
Oh,
go?
my picture. So this is how I describe awakening in the group power healing that we do.
So simple and perfect.
Hold on.
It's a little
Okay.
bright.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Oh, I see. It's too bright. Oh,
there
there we
you go,
go.
right there.
Okay. So this is how I describe awakening kind of in a nutshell. This is the truth of who we are. And it's the light. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. A few years ago, I could draw like that light a little bit smaller, even though it's always big.
And
But our experience, it was covered more, right? Now it's so much more. And all of this stuff is all of our ego identities and past life stuff and belief systems and stories and soul history, and how this light is taking all this and clearing and purifying and reconciling and balancing. So what we do in the group power healing is when we meet, I see you as this, and then these details pop up, and then that's what we clear off so you can be embodied here that much easier. So when we make the space by clearing this stuff easier, bringing awareness faster, you can embody this easier, right?
and intuitively, I it's also important to remind people that sometimes if the pain or the darkness in your life is getting bigger, that's because the light is getting bigger.
Amen, brother.
Amen. Okay. Peace,
So
peace,
true.
loving and blessings to you, darling sister. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will
Thank
see
you.
you on
Thank
the
you. Thank
magical
you.
flip side.
Okay.
Blessings to
Bye,
you.
guys.